Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another fun and exciting episode of Loremasters of the Absurd, the podcast that covers the absurd films of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. With your host, Loremaster Jeff, myself, Loremaster Eli. How you doing today, Jeff?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Was, I was doing better until we decided to watch this movie. That's for sure.
Listen, as I said last week, I was episode was late because I was getting over COVID, and now this one's coming out, and I feel like this movie may have been worse than COVID.
Yeah, it's possible.
I forgot how bad this movie is, but so as we're continuing, this is our month of March Madness. We talked about some films with a little bit of madness involved. So we thought this week, what better than to discuss the Pyscho remake. This was a remake of Alfred Hitchcock's famous Pyscho film, the one that went on to inspire many horror films. A film that actually almost became the gold line for the genre of madman thrillers. And they decided to, what they bragged about, make a shot-for-shot, line-for-line remake. That's what a lot of the filmmakers said this was when this came out in like 98. The back to VHS cover for this movie is just them basically sucking their own butt. So basically, for those of you that have not seen Pyscho, basically you have the tale of a man who owns a motel with his mother that you never see. And he seems lightly disturbed. And then his mother starts killing guests, which you realize by the end that, spoiler alert, his mother's dead. He is a psycho and pretends to be his mother and keeps her corpse up in the house as a souvenir, I guess. I don't know. For fun, good times. And so they went out because they wanted to honor Alfred Hitchcock, a famous horror director who made the original, and they made this shot for shot, line for line, what they called remake of Pyscho. We have a lot to say about this movie. I have a feeling a lot to unpack here. So let's get into it. Jeff, was this your first time watching the Pyscho remake, and what did you think?
This 100% was the first time I watched this.
Okay.
As far as what I thought of it, I don't have any words for how bad this movie was.
Did you ever see the original?
I did. I saw the original. And even now, the original stands up, right? Like, if you watch the original, and I don't know if it's an expectation of the time frame that movie was made versus when this one was made, but I was expecting something dramatically better than what this movie was. And by dramatically better, I mean just like a regular movie, not like not just like to be a film. This lady of a movie is basically what we got. This was like essentially we got some people to say some lines, and there was a camera around. That's the extent of this movie. So it's dog shit.
This is the second time I've watched this all the way through. I've seen bits the second time. I loved the original Pyscho. It's one of my favorite movies. And I was one of those, as I was growing up, I was one of those snobby guys when I was high school about movies, I'm not gonna watch a remake. Why would they remake that? Until when I got in high school and I had a teacher who used to talk about movies with, hated this movie. And his main reason for hating it, Anne Heche's butthole. Because there's a scene when Anne Heche dies, you basically see her butt. And he was convinced that the only reason they did that, they showed that much nudity of Miss Anne Heche, was because the original Pyscho was the first movie to have a shower, someone in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first movie to show a toilet
Oh, really?
on film. Yeah.
Mm.
And he thought, and he was convinced that the only reason they did that was because they wanted to capitalize, like to be like, okay, we're gonna be the first like mainstream movie to basically show someone's
Mm.
brown eye. He was so angry about it. Well, of course, a bunch of us were like, well, you know what? Maybe we should watch this movie because there's no way they should have, but and they did. And then I wish I
Yeah,
never watched this movie.
you know, it's weird. It felt very out of place
Like they were
considering like
purposely just trying to put a
right
butthole on film.
because like they didn't show any other nudity, and there was literally like she was in the shower the whole time, and she was even getting attacked from the front, and there was no frontal
Mm-hmm.
nudity. There was no nothing, but for some reason they decided to show her butt whenever she like fell out of the bathtub or whatever. Like,
Right, in a
and
really weird way.
it wasn't like a gratuitous nudity. Like it was like a
Right.
very quick scene. Like it wasn't, you know, because I mean, I'll be honest with you, I thought it was going to be a lot longer, different than it was, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it was like a very like fast thing. But yeah, it still felt very out of place
Yeah,
or
right. It was really weird. And
like unnecessary or whatever, I guess.
right. And like we all watching we're like I remember we thought it would be funny because we're like, oh, it's just, there's gonna show a random butt on
Mhm.
like movie, like like a bunch of high schoolers. And then like I watched, I was like, this is like it felt like why is she falling out of that tub so slow?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
what is this? Why is this
That
movie
whole
so
there was
bad?
problems with that whole scene. It was
Hmm.
just dumb. Like
There's probably the whole movie.
yeah, well, the
Uh
whole movie.
but yeah, so and then like I remember like even like just the whole thing just I think you described the movie perfectly when you in the way you described that scene her in the shower. It just feels out of place and weird. Like the
Yeah,
whole
the whole
movie.
movie, every scene and every kind of scenario feels out of place, and
Yeah.
it feels like the actors don't know really what they're doing, or like they don't know why they're there. They're just like, oh, I have some lines to say, so I'm just gonna deliver them in some way that they told me this character was supposed to be like.
Yeah.
And the very first thing that got me, Vigo
Morrison. Yeah,
Morganson.
Aragorn, son
Why
of
can he
Arathorn.
not, like what kind of accent or whatever he was going for in the beginning? Because he literally you couldn't understand what he was fucking saying. I thought we were back in Escape from New York because he was mumbling like he couldn't even understand what he was talking about. He's
I
just like what are you talking? What are you even saying? Like,
I kept I couldn't tell if he was trying to do like a southern like slow like molasses or if he was trying to
yeah,
do an Australian. I couldn't
he
tell.
did. Well,
I
he
understood
didn't know
about every
either.
other word.
He didn't know either. You
I
know,
understood like every other word that he said. I was like, all
because
right,
they were what in Phoenix, right?
correct. Uh-huh.
And he was in California. Is that where he or
I
where?
believe, yep.
And like, so I thought, okay, maybe he was going for like a Texas accent, but then they said where he was from, and I'm like, well, people don't talk like that in like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it didn't make any sense. It's like he didn't. They're like, do a California accent, and he's like, where's California? Like, like
What is this? California? You speak
yeah.
of?
He's like, is that by Australia? Like,
Hey,
fucking,
bro, he was just waiting to go to Middle Earth,
I guess, yeah.
You figure this is we're getting close to Middle Earth time.
Yeah.
In a few short years, he would be, which is kind of crazy to think about, right? Because like dude was in some movies, but
Mm-hmm.
like wasn't
Nothing
really
really, yeah,
big.
yeah.
Became Aragorn, which that wasn't the first choice, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
like somehow learned to act. And especially between these two movies in like 3 years.
Yeah.
This came out in 98. I think what the fellowship's like 2001, right?
Yeah, something like
So
that. I think
in like
2000, 2001.
they figured it took him like a year to film it. So
Mhm.
somewhere between like 97 when he filmed this piece of shit and like 2000, like 99, 2000, he learned to act. And I don't know where or how
Well,
fast.
I mean, was this a I think this was a mis misguided vision of what they thought this movie should be, right? because you can tell that they're trying to recapture that, like the first movie and the way things were done. And the first movie, I think when you watch the first movie, it's not great cinematically. Like the acting isn't spectacular, and it isn't.
What, you talking about in the original?
The original, yeah.
Oh no, my God, I love the original.
But well, I'm saying, like, I think that there is an expectation when you watch that movie of how it's going to be versus the expectation of this movie and what it turned out to be, if that makes sense. For in strictly the fact of when they were made, right? So if you watch that older movie, you understand what it's going to be like. You know what I mean?
Right, okay,
this was made in 1998, right? And you're like, why does it seem like everybody has half a brain in this movie? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because technology and like script writing is more sophisticated, and you would expect all that to advance in a movie that was made in 1999. But they tried to keep this, and unsuccessfully, the cinematic aspect of the older movie. But
because like I said, they advertised as a shot for shot, line for line remake of the original. And then the one thing though, like in the original, there were shots that if you look at Hitchcock's notes, that he couldn't do because the technology wasn't caught up. So like for example, the beginning shot of this movie is this single shot, like upside down, like view twist in of the city. He wanted to do that but couldn't. The technology wasn't there for him to do that shot. So like, oh well, we'll do that shot for him. Which okay, that's neat. But then they also took it a step further because they're like, we're going to remake shots from the 60s. And so like every time someone's driving, they have that weird like screen behind them.
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like in the 60s, that was fine. Like you understood that you were watching a movie from the 60s, and that was a not trick, but like that was something that they used to convey something in the 60s. And the other thing is, maybe it's because this one's in color. Like the black and white adds a whole different dimension to that movie. So like when you're watching those car scenes or somebody driving in a black and white movie with that camera angle that they're using, it conveys a completely different message than it does when you're looking at somebody like Anne Heche, like in your background driving in a car in a colored movie. Like it's different, and you can't recapture that. You may be able to, but they just didn't here.
Well, it's not even like they were. It's almost like they're like, oh well, they did this, let's do it. But the problem is it doesn't match the aesthetic of the rest of the.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's a good word. That's what I was trying to. Yeah, it just takes you out of it. It just ends up being like, well, this is crappy camera work, is what it ends up being. You know, like
Right. And like it's just not
good.
It's just not good. And like the other weird thing too, like which doesn't make sense throughout the whole rest of the movie, right? Like they did Anne Heche dirty in this movie. They did Anne Heche real dirty in this movie, because the other weird thing is the rest of the movie looks, everybody's like modern looking, dressed modernly, everything. Anne Heche, they even have her wearing clothes from the 60s when no one else is.
Like that's the other thing too, was really dumb. They said it, they're like, okay, this is 1998, and you're looking around and you're like, well, why is there half of these people? Because she wasn't the only one. Like that oil tycoon came in, looked like he was like
from Dallas.
Hog from, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like they kept doing that stuff, and I'm like, well, don't say it's in 1998 then. That doesn't make any sense. It's just end up being stupid. It's like, if you're going to if you're going to remake the movie, just remake the movie. If you're going to shot for shot make it, do it again, but set it in the 1960s. I don't know why they're running around in 1998 with everything looks like it's from the 60s, and it doesn't make any sense. Like and that was one of the other things too that really threw me off. It's just like, why is half of the stuff from the 60s and a lot of it's not? And like it was just dumb, especially the opening scene when they pan across the city and you're like, okay, this is Psycho, and it's whatever Phoenix in 1998, and then you go into like some of these buildings and they look like they're 50 years old. I'm like, this is dumb. This doesn't make any sense. There was a lot of problems with this movie. And
yeah.
I hated this movie. I think I hated it.
I hate it because
Yeah.
if they wanted to make everybody dress like the '60s, like as some kind of artistic thing, I think
But
I've been like,
only some people
yeah,
were.
only
You know
half
what
of
I
them
mean?
were like
Or they were
Norman
like
Bates
this,
wasn't.
or they were this weird like amalgam of, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
like this fashion amalgam that they like a reimagining of what they thought that people would look like if they were caught between time dimensions. I don't like, you know what I mean? It's like
Right, right, right. Okay, all right. The other thing I think we should talk about is
why you know what I'm going to talk about? Why was her license plate ANL? Because that's anal.
well, I'm just saying, it's weird. Once again though, what's I can't get back. Like it's such a weird and I was like it was kind of crazy too. Is like when I was in high school, I was like you don't really hear people talk about the Psycho remake very often
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's a
good, yeah,
huge
for
piece of
good,
shit.
yeah.
And not to malign the dead because Anne Heche died last year, but like it
Mm-hmm.
was always weird to me that like that you get this quick flash of her like butthole in like this weird way, the way she like, which I mean we could talk about, like I'm sure we'll talk about is how terrible the killing scenes are in this movie,
Yeah.
but like it's just this weird thing, and like so much so like when I was in high school, I was like, that's so weird. And I remember like my friends and I like sitting there talking about how like weird it was. Uh and then like I've heard other comedians joke in oh excuse me. I've heard other comedians joke about like Anne Heche's butthole in this movie because it's such a weird uh it's just so weird and like out of place. It like doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Like the whole scene just doesn't make sense.
well, yeah, the killing scenes were real dumb. Like they were bad. Like
Terrible.
that like I don't understand. She's in the shower. She gets stabbed like 96 times and she has two little red marks on her back.
Once again,
Like it was
they
real stupid.
they try to do this thing, and I don't know if they, which didn't make sense, if they were like paying homage to the original, because like Hitchcock had to do the killing scenes the way he did for a couple
Right.
reasons. One,
Yeah.
the technology wasn't there. Two, you weren't allowed to show that kind of like you were very limited to what you could show on film,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then like three, like stuntmen, it wasn't like what it is now. Like you and like once again, the technology wasn't there that you could creepily show someone get stabbed and fall down the
Right.
steps.
They just didn't have the ability to
Right.
make it great. Yeah.
And so he did it that way. And then in this movie, once again, with the rest of the movie being filmed modernly and looking modern, they did these like the two kills you see in this movie, the way they did them, and like they tried to make them like they use this old technology, but it didn't look good. It
No, it
didn't
didn't
look
make
good at
sense.
all.
That's the thing. If you're going to do it, modernize it. You can make a shot for shot movie, but make it like there's no reason that she couldn't be flailing the same ways in the shower and blah 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 blah, but
Right.
still get stabbed like a modern movie. Like there's no reason to not do that, except you're sniffing your own farts. That's
Right.
why this director was so full of himself. He thought that he was better than Alfred Hitchcock. Like he's like, I'm going to modernize this movie. It's going to be. I'm going to use all Alfred Hitchcock stuff, and it's going to look great, and people are going to love this movie. Well, guess what, dummy? Nobody loves it. It's crap. It's trash.
It's funny you bring up the director because I was saving this and I was gonna wait for a moment to bring this up. And I think now is the moment. You don't seem to be a huge fan of this director. The director's name is Gus Van Zant.
Okay. Is he related to Ronnie Van Zant?
I do not think so.
From Leonard Skinner?
What if I told you that prior
he was bad?
Well, I mean, yeah. But prior to Psycho, what if I told you he only really directed one other movie? He's directed a lot before that.
Yeah.
But only one of them was a movie.
Okay.
He was the director of Good Will Hunting.
Before
Psycho. Which I like Good Will Hunting. I think it's a good movie.
Yeah. I don't know.
Do you know what he did prior to Good Will Hunting?
What's that?
All music videos.
Oh, hey, there we go.
In like short independent movies, I should
He
say.
should have just made a music video out of this. It would have been better than this movie. It would have
Uh,
made more sense. Like,
he directed David Bowie's music video for the song Fame 90, which I've never heard of.
I don't know about that one either.
He directed the music video for Tommy Conwell and the Young Rumblers. I'm 17. The Red Hot Chili Peppers Under the Bridge. He directed that music video.
That was a good video.
He directed Bang 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 by Tracy Chapman.
Mm.
It's not Fast Car, which is I think is the only song Tracy Chapman is known for. The music video for The Last Song by Elton John.
Wow, this guy's a lot of
the
heavy hitters.
The alternate version of Creep for Stone Temple Pilots. A Katie Lang music video. A commercial for Volvo called Four Boys in a Volvo.
It's just weird that, like, why would they decide to go with this guy, right?
I think Good Will Hunting.
This guy has, I guess, but that
it won an Oscar. It won a couple Oscars.
But the thing is, that has nothing to do with the movie Psycho.
No,
you know what I mean? Like, and that's what's always weird is you get these movies by these directors and their catalog of work, and it's not always the case, but most of the time when you get these movies that are made by these people that are out of their wheelhouse because people want to try, they got faith in them, or they end up being complete trash because honestly, you're good at something, just stick with that. Stay in your lane, guy. Don't, like, if you're good at music videos and movies about whatever math geniuses or whatever, don't try to remake Psycho. Like, what in that catalog of work made anybody think that he was even remotely qualified to touch a classic movie like Psycho?
He did between Good Will Hunting, but before he did Psycho, right after Good Will Hunting, he did a music video for the Hansons. I think that's what did it.
Well, but you know, like, doesn't like right. That seems like a no thought required to, right. Like, this guy, okay, here's his resume, like, okay, well, he did a bunch of music videos. Good Will Hunting was a really good movie, but it had nothing to do with Psycho. Why would we put him on here? Like, who made that? It wasn't decision?
Horror. It wasn't anything to do with horror.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not, especially a classic horror movie. Like, it's not like he's remaking Slugs from Outer Space or something. You know what I mean? Like, this is a staple horror movie, and he just ended up screwing it up, being a dummy. Like,
well, you'll be happy to know that after Psycho, he went on to do a couple other small films that he did one more big film, I would say, called Finding Forrester with Mr. Sean Connery. Okay. Then he went back, did a couple of small ones, went back to doing music videos and like little small independent ones. Then they brought him back out of the world in 2008 to do probably his last big movie, which was Milk.
I never saw that movie. I was actually on HBO the other day.
Mm-hmm. And then he has done one popular TV show. Well, I'm sorry, he did one episode of a popular TV series, which was Boss, that had Kelsey Grammer in it in 2011. Then he's done some small stuff and more music videos, and that was it.
Well, stick to pop-up videos, guy. That's what I say.
Pop-up videos?
Yeah, on
pop-up
VH1.
Video? Yeah, it's not.
I felt like this should have. You know what? This movie would have been better if it had the pop-up video things popping up.
Yeah,
I'm not even joking. Like, because then you would have understood that, hey, this is a remake and it's not as serious as, you know what I mean? Like, if they would have had like little bubbles pop up, like, well, in the original Psycho, this had, like, I would have watched this movie a couple times. Like, you know what I mean?
What's kind of crazy, because I was talking to Mary about this. One of the most frustrating things about this is sometimes with these remakes, it can be really fun if you're a fan of horror or whatever, right. Or of the original, to like see these like, oh, that's cool, that's from the original, right? Where in this movie, they literally take it and beat you over the face with it. And then you're
that's
what
I'm saying. It should have been an adaptation. Like I said, you can go shot for shot, right? Let's take the shower scene. Make the shower scene look as close as possible to the other scene while still using modern technology and film techniques. It's not that it shouldn't be that difficult to do. And that's the other thing too that doesn't really make any sense. Like, this movie should have been way better than it was because the original movie is good. You're taking a movie that's already good and kind of just redoing it. You know what I mean? Especially if you're doing it shot for shot and not really changing the story, just update it. That's all you had to do was just update the movie, and this guy would have had a home run. Like,
but he updated. Well, I don't know though, because I think one of the things we're getting to here is cast. I don't know if I think every step of this was a misstep, but yeah, but you're right. Like if in my thing is either remake it and make the whole thing look like the 60s, or remake it and make it all modern. Don't do this weird mix, because unfortunately no one on this movie was clever enough to do that.
Yeah.
They just weren't, and because of that, it looked weird and bad and jarring. And I think what should kind of pivot into that, one of the things that like really affects this is like the kills in this movie like don't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, you're not sad about the deaths or anything, or like there's no impact to the two deaths. Like, you have a horror movie with only two deaths and there's no impact to them because they look so ridiculous and cartoonish.
Well, like when they died, I'm like especially the shower one, I'm like, she's not, like, how is she dead? I was like, how is she even dead? Because she got slashed. What, like, there's no marks on her front body. There's two, like, looks like red pen marks on her back. I'm like, I'm like, I was expecting her to like get up and fight some more. I'm like,
well, it's like so weird. Like, it looked terrible. It looked awful. It wasn't good. And like, she made these like weird faces and stuff. And then like it ends with her like slow motion.
I'm not convinced Anne Heche was a good actress. Like, so the scene where she's like driving and like falling asleep, she kept making these, instead of being like she's like,
yeah.
like nobody falls asleep like that. She's like laying in her bed, like getting ready for bed. And she's like,
they do. You're gonna think they're on drugs.
Yeah, I'm like this is stupid. It's dumb. The casting. The guy that was the what was his name, Abercrombie or whatever the private detective was, he wasn't bad. Yeah,
no, but like bad. Once again though, his death and like
it was
once
dumb.
Again, you have these two characters like Anne Heche. Her death looked terrible. It did not look good, right? And then like if there's any semblance of uncomfortableness with her death scene, it's ruined when she like, it's almost like they're like, we don't have the budget for slow motion, and she's like, well, here, I can just do slow motion.
Yeah, she's like, I'm in slow motion.
Yeah, and then like ends with like the butthole shot, which is like weird that they even kept that in there. And then William, and so it's like like that whole like last 10 seconds of her death is just like, well, this is a cartoon. And then William Macy, right? Even like, okay, whatever, but then watching him do like that.
Yeah, they did that weird, like that weird fall thing.
Yeah, and like the way he moves his arms, like he was trying to block birds from attacking him.
Yeah,
and then like at one point you're like, he's been falling down these steps for 10 minutes and he's not. And then
it didn't seem like he was falling. It felt like he was getting sucked into another dimension.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean? And that's stupid. Why can't you make somebody fall down the steps? What is the point of having somebody fall like that?
Right. But then
there's no point in it. Like,
right. And like they made it like he's at the very top of the step when he gets stabbed.
Yeah.
Twice or whatever. And
cut across the face or whatever.
Two low cuts. And like, so you presume, even though it looks awful, that he falls down this whole staircase, right? But then they do a side shot, he only falls down 2 steps. And you're like,
yeah.
And once again, now it's just cartoonish. It's like, all right.
Yeah, it was just dumb.
Okay, cool.
The whole thing was dumb.
Cool. This is awesome.
Like, you know what? There was a lot of stuff that, like, also the way they shot it was whatever, but there was a lot of like edit issues or something. Like the one point after he kills Anne Heche, he goes up and turns all the lights out to the motel, right?
Yeah.
He goes in. When he comes back outside, all the lights are back on. I'm like, you idiots can't figure out how to edit a movie that's this bad and keep a scene where the lights are out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it was just, there was a lot of that kind of weird stuff that just, once again, and it's like, I guess it would be nitpicky at best in a good movie, but
Right.
it's just once again it just speaks to how bad this movie is,
Well,
that they couldn't be competent enough or care
right.
enough for a simple thing like that to edit that out, because you can tell that they shot the scene where Vince Vaughn comes out and gets in her car, and after he's cleaning her up, while the lights were on, because the light from the motel signs blaring on it, the lights along the roof
Right.
are blaring, but like literally 5 seconds before that, he turned all the lights off the motel.
Right.
I'm like, why can't you get something like that right? You obviously didn't spend a lot of time thinking about the rest of the movie. You think it'd be something, you could figure out in editing.
Right. Right. And like my problem is too, because I've seen people make the argument for this movie that it's like, oh well, it's trying to be jarring because it's madness. It's like, no. If you look at Hitchcock's original, like he would build up this weird suspense and then like he would just cut it. But like you build up where like this, it's what's stopping you is not the suspense or this feeling uncomfortable. It's just like they do such weird bad things. It just takes you out of the movie completely. Like, oh my god, it's so dumb.
Well, I was uncomfortable because I wanted to vomit because this movie was trash. That's why I was uncomfortable. Had nothing to do with the movie's effects.
Yeah, that's just like it's like because there's no suspense in this movie at all, like none.
What yeah. I wasn't. They did not do any type of good job of building up suspense.
No, and like I wasn't scared.
The techniques they tried to use were they just came off
mediocre.
Not even that. They were worse than mediocre. They were just bad. Yeah, you're right. That's a good. There was no suspense in this movie. No. There was not one time where you're like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. And I don't know if everything it just felt choreographed, or you already knew about the original Psycho movie.
I still think they could have had the suspense, or like even with like the imagery or like the way the scenes look, make me uncomfortable, But like they didn't do that in this movie. Like I wasn't uncomfortable or anything because it just all looked so bad. Like it just looked so.
Well, that's the other thing too, is especially with her when she first gets there, and so I get it. They're horror movies and people do dumb things in horror movies, but they don't make the effort to make her character feel like she would have sat there and talked to Norman Bates after he started freaking out about stuff. Like there's never any point where especially because she starts off in a hotel room with that guy and she's talking shit on her boss anyway, and she goes back to the thing and she's instantly a bad person because she steals that $400,000. Right. But somehow we're supposed to believe that she's a compassionate, kind, caring person, and she's going to sit there and listen to this nut job because he starts freaking out when she says about like a home or whatever. Like he literally starts getting pissed off. She's all by herself at a hotel in the middle of night, and this guy is fucking freaking out about one little thing she said about his mother, and we're supposed to believe that she's just gonna be like, all right, that's fine, I'm just gonna go sleep in my room. I'm gonna go sleep, which is the most vulnerable thing you can do in this motel. You know what I mean? It's dumb. It just doesn't make any sense. There's no like rhyme or reason, because even in a lot of horror movies there's at least some like why are people doing stuff, what I mean?
But like the one thing like
Hitchcock, he even says, he's like, the rain, like the whole point of her stopping there was it's pouring down rain, right? The rain stops and they're talking about the diner that's 10 miles away, and the next major city is 15 miles away. Right. So you already know this. You know that this weirdo is sitting there like getting pissed off and upset at you because you mentioned one little thing, and you're just gonna stay there. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like,
no, I tell you, like, because I'll say this, like the whole scene doesn't make sense, right? Because like even up to that point, so she goes back to her room, and so he, excuse me, he like lifts this picture off the wall, and there's the biggest fucking hole I've ever seen in my life. Like peak hole that he can look through.
Oh, so it was the big hole was on his side, and then there was a smaller hole on the other side. Like if you look, because they showed like the space between the wall, right? So there was a big hole on his side, but still there's a big hole in the other on the wall on the other end. Like,
right. Like it, like she has the lights off, he has them on. Which one you'd think to see that? But then it proceeds to, because I had to turn my TV down. Then he proceeds to masturbate so loudly that she can't hear it, and I had to turn my TV down. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and once again, I'm not creeped out by it. I don't find it weird. I'm annoyed because I'm like, why is it so loud?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, why is that so loud? Like, I mean, does he have a microphone next to his dick?
Yeah,
Like, what is
he
he?
must.
What is he doing? Like, does he want the whole neighborhood to hear him? Like,
Yeah, I guess
masturbate?
it's like blaring it over the loudspeaker.
I had to turn my TV down because I was like, Jesus. I was like, why is it so loud? And once again, like, I think in their mind, they're like, oh, this will make people uncomfortable. And like, really, it's just like,
Yeah,
why is that
yeah.
creepy or unsettling? It's just like
He's just weird.
obnoxious that you're
Yeah,
playing this masturbation sound so loud.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's get into that then. What did you think of Mr. Vince Vaughn? Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates.
He felt a little bit like Ozzy from Leprechaun to me. He wasn't the worst, but I don't know. He just he came off as just kind of. I get what he was going for, like this childish, like whatever, you know. I don't know. It was. I don't think he was the. I don't think he was the biggest issue with this movie. I guess. You know. I can't say he was great, but he wasn't the worst thing in the movie. So.
Well, once again, and like I think that's why you don't see him in anything now, or like maybe horror isn't his thing.
Mm-hmm.
Vince Vaughn is always Vince Vaughn. Like, you can't
Right.
play
Yeah.
anybody else.
Yeah.
And like Anthony Perkins, who played the original Norman Bates, made his career. Like his performance of Norman Bates is considered legendary. And like, I feel like once again, you're gonna remake this. You're never gonna about touch it with a candlestick, but you better find somebody who can at least carry
Who can
it.
at least carry it, yeah.
And Vince Vaughn was not
no,
that.
no, compared to the original, no. Huh? And the thing about the original one is the like sadistic and even keel nature of his, you know what I mean? Like, and
right.
you get like there was a lot of Vince Vaughn kind of added these like weird like silliness to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the way he was like eating that candy or whatever.
Yeah.
He kept like going.
Once again,
I'm like
the sound of him eating it was so loud, and like
yeah.
I think in their mind they thought, oh, that will make people uncomfortable. It didn't. It was just annoying because you're like,
well, right. It didn't make people uncomfortable for the way
right.
they thought it should. It just made people angry and upset about it.
Right. And like it's just crazy. And like people are, and like I've seen the argument like, well, nobody can beat Anthony Perkins. Well, I'm not saying that, but like if you look at like the TV show Bates Motel,
yeah,
Freddie Highmore or wherever played him,
right?
Fantastic job. Fantastic job.
And once again, because he had like the whole point of like Psycho, right, is they're this even keeled like person, and like their delivery is there's no, you can't get a read on them, and that's what makes them dangerous, right? That's the whole point of it. Like this, like I said, this guy could have literally I had some kind of deficiency, or like, you know what I mean? Like the way that he played his character, it came off real with just
right. Because like even if you look at like the original movie, like everybody thought, oh, well, Norman's a nice guy.
You know what, this guy,
odd,
you know,
nice
like
guy.
like if Norman Bates, like Vince Vaughn's, could have been like a current YouTube streamer or something, like the way he acted, you know what I mean? Like, but you know what I'm saying?
It's your
like,
boy.
Yeah, he's like, hey, it's your boy Norman Bates here. You know what I mean? But you know what I'm saying? Like, there's he was too quirky, like that, you know.
Well, that's what's like weird because like in the like in the original, like it was Norman was, oh, he's nice, he's just a little odd,
right?
He's basically a mama's boy.
Yeah.
They didn't.
He was polite.
That.
Like he was, you know, like he. There were like, I don't know. Yeah, it was just bad. There was nothing. This movie is one that I don't think has any redeeming qualities.
No,
you know?
No, because like that's the other thing too. So like at the end, so then, and once again, then you bring in Marion Anne Heche's sister, Lila Crane or whatever, comes to find,
which there was no point in them being there.
Well, I mean, they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like no point. Like once again, like I don't. Terrible acting.
Like, was Viggo Mortensen banging her sister?
That's what I don't know. Like I don't
Because if you
know.
remember in the beginning, when the very first scene when he's talking about when he's talking to Anne Heche, she says something about I have a sister, and he made some like comment about like
Yeah,
having a three-way or something. You know what I mean?
right.
And
Yeah,
it's just like what are they going for with their characters? I don't understand what they were even trying to do with their characters.
right,
Like it doesn't. They have no like. That's why I said there was literally like, okay, here's a bunch of lines. Actors show up and have no expression or emotion.
right,
Okay, easy paycheck. You know what I mean?
right. It's just it's so weird. And like what's kind of crazy too, like like once again, like she's supposed to I don't know what her like she just like walked like I get like you're supposed to be worried about your sister, but really she seems like pissed off the whole time.
Yeah, yeah.
And like
And even at the end, like they're like,
and
she goes, "Hey, did he kill my sister?"
they're like, Yep,
And they're yeah, and she's like,
all right.
"Okay."
I
Yeah, and even there was no emotion. They were literally like, no, like oh no, like they're just like, okay,
dude, at the end of
okay.
the movie,
Like
when
you know what? It felt like they were just waiting for everything to be done. The whole movie, like they were
yeah,
just waiting for this movie to be over, and that's the same feeling I got.
yeah.
Oh, you know?
At the end of the movie, like she like the reveal or whatever, like she goes into Norman's house to try to talk to this old woman people keep seeing. And like she goes down to the basement where he's got a bunch of birds that he's like, I like to stuff
Taxidermist,
birds,
yeah,
but then he has a bunch of live birds in there, which like, all right. And then she like there's an old lady looks like sitting there looking at the birds. She turned it and it's this dead body that's the one behind Jeff. And then she's like, ah. And then like she
yeah.
turns around and there's Norman dressed as his mom with a knife. And she's like, and like doesn't yell like it's like
Mhm.
I'm not what she's not scared. Why should I be scared?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I said, my summation of this movie was everybody in it was just waiting for it to be over.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, how many more scenes do we have? Okay, you know, there was no emotion, there was no gravity to any situation. Everybody was just going through the motions of filming in this.
Yeah.
In this, yep.
And like it's
And once again,
crazy.
that has to come down to the director, right? Like it has to. It has to go
Yeah.
back to that guy. He's like, oh, we're going to be filming a take on me video from Aha, and they're like, no, this is Psycho. He's like, well, I don't know anything about movies. Roll.
They're like, well, didn't you film Goodwill Hunting? I
He's
did.
like, I think that was about math problems. Is this
Yeah.
movie about math problems?
How much candy's he eating?
maybe that's the
Kidding.
problem, right? Like he gave everybody a bunch of math problems before the.
I don't know.
He's like, here's your lines, and it's just like this unsolvable math problem, and they're like, what do you? He's like, action. Like,
it's just like, like it's like he's like I don't know what to do unless there's like a bodily sound noise of like someone eating or masturbating.
Yeah.
He's like, crank that up to 11.
Yeah,
I want everybody in the back to hear. You're like, all right, well, cool. This is awesome. Yeah, I did. This movie is not good. Like,
nope.
Like it's crazy if you think like. Once again, it's crazy you think about the original. Didn't really have like a super well known cast except for like I think Anthony Perkins did some stuff, but like the original Marion Crane that was played by Jamie Lee Curtis's mom, the original Scream Queen, you know.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So at the time when the original movie came out, and one of the reasons it is such a good movie is because it pushed the boundary on certain things.
Right.
Okay. Like you said, the shower scene, the toilet scene. Like this movie didn't try to do that. And you can't have a movie that's what 40 years later or whatever, 50 years, whatever, you know what I mean? And not at least attempt to bring it up to date. It's never going to work. Otherwise, why watch this movie? Right? Why bother taking time, money, and effort to remake this movie if you're not going to modernize it or at least bring it up to date and do some of the things at least maybe not better but differently and make them fit more with the current time frame because of technology and techniques. Why bother? Bother?
I'm like telling you,
he literally could have taken out of that money. They're like, here's a bunch of money to make this movie, and he could have just got the original movie and colorized it and really re-released it. You know what I mean? Like,
right. I'm telling you, I honestly think in their mind they pushed that shower scene. They're like, we're gonna start off with the loudest masturbation scene ever heard on film,
Yeah.
and then we're
Yes.
gonna show Anne Heche's butthole.
Yep.
Like that's
Mhm.
like that in their mind. That's how they push this movie, and like no, like and once again, like that shower scene made people uncomfortable because like you're really like you have a vulnerable uh person in a place
Yeah,
where
that's
like
like one of
there's
your
no
once again,
defense,
other
right?
than sleep, that's kind of one of your most
Right.
vulnerable
And
positions, right?
like
You're naked,
right,
you
right.
have
And like
water and your soap in your eyes, like
right. And like was also I think terrifying for people. Like it wasn't like some of the other like horror movies at time where like it's dark, you can't see.
yeah, it's
The
bright.
light,
Yeah,
it
the
was
lights are
bright lights
on.
on. She
Yeah,
knew exactly what was happening. Like that's terrifying. And in this, she did this weird interpretive dance, like marionette thing in the shower, and then tried to do her own slow motion. Like and like it was just like, well, that's not doesn't make me comfortable. It's just weird. Like why are
yeah,
we doing this?
yeah. Hmm.
Like if I was a serial killer killing her, like she started doing that, I'd go,
I'd say you're
what are you
right. You
doing?
stab her once, and she's like, "Oh!"
Yeah, what are you? What are
Yeah,
you know
it
what?
reminded me
Tell
of
me.
like like whenever is that Wayne's World where he's like, I fell over, I fell over. Or is that Austin Powers? What I don't
Yeah.
know, whatever one of the movies
Why
is.
won't you die? Like it's like he like stabbed her 150 times and she just standing there with her arm out. And like that's the other thing I don't understand. Like, I mean, she was kind of animated in the original one, but like she grabs the shower, falls with the
Yeah,
shower,
yeah.
and in this she like it's almost like she was doing interpretive dancing. I stabbed. I grabbed the shower.
Yeah,
Stop.
it was not great.
Slow motion worm over the edge of the
Mm-hmm.
tub. And you're like, what? What? All right. And like William H. Macy, once again, don't think he ever saw anybody fall down steps before.
Nope. No.
They're like, we want you to act like you're falling down steps. He's like, well, what does that look like? They're like, hey, remember when Batman used to do the bat tootsies in the 60s? You know? And they're like, yeah, like, just don't do this part. He's like, oh, okay.
Like, I know
Oh.
I like the thing is, once again, I don't think that the director talked to these people while it's happening in the movie. They told him, they're like, hey, you're gonna get sucked into another dimension. That's what they told him. And
Have you seen Star Wars?
it's like they were playing a joke, right? Like, and then the director's like, he's like, hey, you're gonna be getting sucked into another dimension. He's like, no, he's not. He's gonna be falling down the steps. Like, you know what I mean? It's just
Got him.
and they told Anne Heche, they're like, okay, well, in this scene, you're going to be doing the robot to dodge the knife attacks. Like,
Oh, okay.
and she's like, you can dance if you want to. You can leave your.
Oh my god. This movie is so bad. Like it was like
Yeah.
I'm honestly and like I watch a lot of horror movies. I like horror. Mary and I both do. This may have been one of the worst horror movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
And Mary's had me
Yeah.
watch some bad horror movies,
Mm-hmm.
but this may be the worst. And like I remember when I watched it the first time, not liking it, thinking how bad it was. That was 15, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then when we decided to do it for this, I was like, maybe it wasn't as bad. Maybe I was just a snooty
No, it's
high
bad.
schooler. No, it's terrible. This is awful. Terrible movie. Uh, is there anybody you'd recommend watch this?
Absolutely not. There's literally no reason for this movie to exist when you can go watch the original one.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason. Now, if every single copy of the original one ever got burnt or something, like, okay, maybe watch this one, but even then, skip it. Like, just be like, well, I heard about the Psycho movie. I'll never get to experience.
Do you think
there's literally no reason for anybody to watch this movie?
Do you think Alfred Hitchcock was happy this got you think he was in his grave happy that they expanded his legacy and did this?
Oh yeah, I'm sure he was real happy. Yeah, he's yep. Mm-hmm.
Nah, I bet you he was probably rolled over in hell.
Nope. Yeah, he does not want anything to do with this. Guaranteed.
I don't think any of the people in the movie want anything to do with it.
No, that's right. Right? That's what it felt like. I'm telling you, it was seriously like they just pulled a bunch of actors' names out of a hat. They're like, "Hey, we need a starring lady." No, Anne Heche wins, and then they called him up and they're like, "Hey, we got this thing where you just got to come say a couple lines, energetically, and then you get killed. And she's like, all right, give me money. And then she just showed up and she didn't even read the line. She's just like, oh, I think some stuff, and then okay.
Well, like, like it's just weird. I like, oh my God. This movie cost $60 million to make.
Wow.
Do you know what its gross worldwide?
$5.
37 million.
Yeah.
It made half.
This is
That's crazy.
the
Oh, what did they
wash.
spend that money on?
I don't know. Yeah, you're right.
Like, I just don't know what they spent that money on. And like, it's just crazy too, because if you think about it, like they had kind of a big cast.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't the biggest names at the time, but they were still, some of them were pretty big, right?
Yeah.
So
Like, it's just, I mean, Vince Vaughn, like he was still kind of relatively new. But like Anne Heche was pretty established. Julian Moore, like starting to get there. Vigo
yeah.
was kind of new, but William H. Macy, Robert Forster. Yeah, I don't recognize anybody else. Oh, Rita Wilson. Forgot she was in it.
Who was she?
And she played I think the other.
She was a secretary.
Yeah.
The other. Yeah.
And then you had
Office
Flea
lady.
from the Red Hot Chili
Yeah,
Peppers.
he was. I saw him in there. He was the clerk at the parts store or whatever.
Hey, listen. This movie actually won. It was nominated and won some awards.
Seriously, the Razzies.
Well, it was nominated for Saturn Awards. Anne Heche was nominated, and the writer. Which I can't believe the writer was different than the director, but that guy should be arrested. William Macy won an award. It was nominated for a Fangoria Chainsaw Award.
I don't know what that is.
It's like a horror magazine. The only awards that it won was Razzies.
Mm-hmm.
It won Razzie for the worst remake or sequel.
Yes, I agree.
And it won a Razzie for the worst director.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I agree with both of those.
The writer, I'm trying to see what else this guy that wrote this. Oh wow, the guy that wrote this has not done much since then. But up to that point, oh, he was one of the. Oh, they just used it. No, that's why they just used the original script and then
I was
fucked
going
it
to say
all
the
up.
writer. I mean, because isn't he just basically
Yeah.
Wasn't it already done?
They
Like
used the original script, just fucked it all up.
yeah, I think that's what I said. That's what's even more disheartening about this is because the original was such a classic, and with what they did with it, they didn't. It wasn't like this was a remake and then they just completely changed the story and it was bad. You know what I mean? They literally could have done such a minimal amount of work to, and granted it may not be like a blockbuster like the original, or like such a super classic like the original, but just update the original some. You don't have to rewrite the story, you don't have to, you know what I mean, just bring it up to speed for the current generation is all they would have had to do with this movie, because the premise is already fantastic, and they just couldn't do it. They couldn't be bothered to do it.
Right. Well, like it's crazy because if you look, like, I mean, it's weird because like of course there are bad remakes out there, but if you look, like there are remakes that like all they did was just kind of like use the new technology to like make the kills or whatever look better. Like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, like people will widely like it. The Evil Dead remake, like they basically just use the technology to fill in the gap that they couldn't at the time.
Right, exactly. And that's the way to do a remake. There's no reason to like rewrite everything and reimagine everything and like, or just not do anything like this movie did, just change the cast.
Do you feel like they were trying to make like an art house film or like trying to make like an artsy film with this?
I mean, I probably a portion of it. but it doesn't even. I don't think it's even good as an art house film.
No, God, no. It's like they were trying to make art with crayons. Can't do it.
Yeah, yeah,
can't do it. Well,
I'd say finger paints. I wouldn't even give them crayons.
Oh man, I found believe it or not, this may shock you. This movie has quite a few 1-star reviews on IMDb. Quite a few. It only has a 4.6 rating.
Whoa.
It has quite a few 1-star reviews, but as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't look at the 1-star reviews because we know it deserves 1-star reviews, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I should read you maybe I should read you one of the 10-star reviews, see what you think about that.
See. First off, was this the director that left this review?
It does. It's their like online name.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It could have been.
So it's probably the director. Yeah.
Yeah. So it probably all of them, because you know what's gonna shock you? There are multiple pages of 10-star reviews. Multiple pages.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Well, let me read you a couple, see what you think.
Okay.
Maybe this will change your mind.
Okay.
This was called Great Remake, Best Remake Ever. Unlike most movies that are remade, this is a really great film. And as you can see, it has been updated for the 90s. Everything remains the same, and that is what makes it good. All in all, the best horror film that came out in 98. The actors did a good job at acting out the roles. So Psycho is a great film.
This guy should not be allowed on the internet.
Just banned from the internet?
Yeah, this person should be banned from the internet. Yep. Yeah, that doesn't. This guy he's off his mark.
Well, if you think he's off the mark, I have one more I'd like to read you.
Hold on. How can he say the best horror film that came out in 1998? Do you know what else came out in 1998?
What's that?
Think about it. What else came out in 1998?
Vampires?
John Carpenter's Vampires.
Wow.
Big Urban Legend came out. Urban Legend came out in 99. The Faculty came out in 1998.
Oh, Faculty's real good.
Deep Rising came out in 1998. Dark City, remember that movie? Came out in 1998. I still Know What You Did Last Summer. H2O.
Oh wow.
Never heard of Phantoms.
Phantoms got Ben Affleck.
Bride of Chucky came out.
Which I like.
Tale of the Mummy. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Splice 2, Shrieker came out in 1998.
Splice is really good.
Well, the second one, Phantasm 2 came. This person has no idea what a horror movie is. If he thinks that is the best horror movie that came out in 1998, he just needs to stop watching movies in general. Like
Jeff, if that one made you mad, I have one that might make you madder.
Okay.
This review is titled Excellent. This movie is amazing from the opening credits by Saw Base to the ending. This is the first time that I can honestly say I really think the original pales in comparison to the remake.
Nope, stop reading right now. Stop reading. Stop it. Just stop reading right now.
Yeah.
Did this guy? Had this guy had like a brain injury or something like that? Is that
he didn't include that in his review? Surprisingly, he's like,
okay,
"Hey, before I get into this, I
can't get too
upset.
I can't get too upset because I'm sure this guy was in a car accident or something." Yeah.
What if I told you that's not the only one that says this is better than the original? There's multiple of them.
Just stop. All right, stop. I don't want to talk about this movie anymore.
So I have to ask, when a movie's this bad, I have to. I feel like our kind of our measuring for exactly
Uh-huh.
how much we hate a movie
Yeah.
is with this simple question. If you're in a room and you can only watch one movie over and over again, this or John Carpenter's Vampires, which one are you picking?
It would be John Carpenter's Vampires. This one
Really?
is
Yeah,
this one's
I agree with
bad.
that.
This one is the worst movie I've ever seen in my adult life.
Oh,
The worst movie.
this is taking
This
the
is
worst spot.
so far. This is the worst movie I have ever seen. Because, like I said, I never watched it before.
Yeah,
This is the worst movie I've ever seen in my adult
but
life. It
not
is
like the fun worst, like John Carpenter's Vampires. This is
right.
just
No,
like the
this is just
worst
the
worst.
worst movie. Like this makes me this. I lost all faith in cinema watching this movie.
Oh my god. I think I hope I didn't break you. I just thought, I was like, hey, Psycho.
Yeah, this was your pick, and
It
I
was.
am. It's going to take me a little while to get over this.
I will
So
say this though, right? The as a little hint next week, the movie we're doing next week, the final March Madness movie, right?
mhm.
Also my pick. It's a good movie though. I promise.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
This one
I've
will
seen that.
raise
I've
you up.
seen the one
Okay.
we're doing next week before. So
Okay. This one will raise you up,
mhm.
But I had to bring you down. I
We have
didn't mean
a
to bring you down this low.
potentially a special guest next week. So
Yeah, potentially.
slated anyway. So as long as our schedules line up.
Uh maybe we should have had a guest on this one so we could ruin someone else's good time.
No, this should never be wrought upon anyone else like this. Is
I was gonna say, what if your worst enemy? Is this how you
no,
get back him?
no, no. Mm-mm. Nope. Nope.
No.
This 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 movie should this movie is against the Geneva Convention.
A crime against
Yeah,
humanity?
it is bad. Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. So what you're saying is you don't want a copy for Christmas.
No, no, no.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask this, Jeff. Would you recommend this movie to anybody?
Nope. Never. Nope.
No. Don't watch this.
Absolutely not.
Watch the
And like I
original.
said, I try to like even bad movies, I try to find a silver lining and like be like, oh well, this was okay in this, that was okay. From start to finish, every level of this movie was bad.
Oh, there's
Every
not
single
one
level of this,
redeeming
there's
quality.
not one thing in this movie that I can even remotely kind of say, oh, that wasn't that bad. Everything was awful. Acting, soundtrack, sound, the story, the way it was presented, the way that it was acted out, it was just bad. The whole thing was bad. Like,
Yeah, there's not in my eyes, there's not a redeeming quality. Like, there's nothing. Like, I can't, because like even like with some bad horror movies, I can be like, oh, the kills look cool
right,
though,
right,
or
yeah,
like the villain was cool or whatever. But like this, you're right. There's nothing. I've
yep,
I've 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 taken shits and looked at them a lot, thought they look better than
yep.
this movie. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's too bad. Nothing. Okay, let me ask this: what could you have done, or what would you have done to save
Mm-hmm.
this movie?
Just not make it.
You don't think like extra characters or anything? You just not make it. Just
No,
be done
there was no. Why would you add more characters that for
because
that
it can't
had no
make it
point of
worse.
being there?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way any character could have saved this movie. You could have had 1,500 other characters, and they would all been standing there with blank looks on their face, blandly delivering lines that nobody had any idea what they were supposed to be doing. That this was a bunch of people just milling around a movie set while camera
So this
was
was a
rolling.
paycheck movie.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're like,
Nobody gave an F about anything they were doing in this movie. Nobody cared. Like nobody cared.
that you fall asleep.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is great. I love it. I love it. I love it. I hate this movie. Never want to watch it again. I'll never watch it again.
No.
I
No.
love it. Never. I don't think. All right. Say one of our listeners come. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Can I check right now? $1 million. You gotta watch this again and do live commentary."
Well, I mean that's a different story.
Oh, okay, all right.
I do I do a lot of things for $1 million. All
right, so there's a line. There's a line that we okay.
Yeah,
all right, I was just trying to get the pulse here. You know what I mean?
No, I mean if it is a leisure activity for me to watch this movie, I will never do it again. So.
What's the lowest price you'd have to watch this again?
Gosh, it'd have to be in the thousands, somewhere around there, like
5,000,
maybe 10, maybe 10. Yeah,
all right, 10's the bottom line. Okay,
I think
all
10 is probably because based on my current celebrity status, I think $10,000 for an hour and a half of appearance is probably a going rate is what we should be charging.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, okay. So with your current celebrity level status, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you get to the level of like Logan Paul.
Okay.
How much you charging then?
Oh gosh, it's we're gonna be what 100,000 probably.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's not too high. Okay. All right.
Or we could just have a boxing match against the director of this movie. That would probably be a better.
But if you box him, how will he make the next music video for the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
That's true.
Just saying, And then they're like, Red Hot Chili Peppers, like, we can't do any more music videos because some guy boxed him because he got mad about a movie he made in the 90s. The Flea was in.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right, well, fuck this movie.
Seriously.
I don't want to talk about it again. But hey, buddy, thanks for listening to another fun episode. I will say this as we end this episode though, Jeff, I'm proud of you. This is the first episode in like 5 episodes that you didn't stomp on Heath Ledger's grave.
Well, yeah, I think this deserves its own grave stomping.
This movie. But if you enjoy listening, make sure you give us 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. Tell us your opening offer to make Jeff watch this again. Let's get a feel for the room, huh? You can also watch episodes on YouTube. The new episodes drop on podcast platforms every Monday. They drop on YouTube on Wednesdays. You can follow us on Instagram at LoremasterJeff's. You can follow us on Facebook. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow on all the fun socials. You can follow me on Instagram at LoremasterEli. Jeff, where can they follow you?
LoremasterJeff on Instagram.
Nice. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up here, so make sure you keep listening and don't watch the Pyscho remake.
Don't do it.
It's not funny, haha, like John Carpenter's Vampires. It's just not good. Just don't do it.
This is one of those like when your parent goes like, "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed in you."
Oh, bad.
It's that feeling from start to finish.
And if in case anybody's wondering, I watched this yesterday and that feeling hasn't gone away.
Nope, I still got it.
Just like the cranberries, it lingers. Yeah. But hey, everybody, don't watch this. Don't say we didn't warn you. And catch y'all next time.